Hello guys, welcome back to ESENtaxa. Andrea Papito here, and in this video we are going to talk about the e-commerce activity in different jurisdictions. In this video we are going to show you how here in ESENtaxa we suggest to our client, we consult our client based on their activity, which jurisdiction it's more convenient or which jurisdiction is less convenient based on this type of activity. So today we focus on e-commerce, where an activity where the most jurisdictions consider a huge amount of cost. There has to be some stain in order to run this business. So an activity with a lot of costs. Then in different videos we are going to discuss other kind of business activity where we have less cost to be deducted, okay? So how it works. When we have an e-commerce, we have to first understand where we want to sell our product, from which country we are set up, in which country we have the tax residence, towards business or towards private clients. So this is very important things to remember. So I'm going to run a B2B business or I'm going to run a B2C business. Again, as we said before, the list of cost, the list of deductibility cost. E-commerce normally has a big percentage of cost. A lot of jurisdictions take into account these kind of things. Another important things, we have to understand exactly how you want to operate with this business. Do you want to operate as a company or you want to operate as an individual, like a businessman? So you want to be a self-employed or freelancer, or you want to be a company where you actually are the administrator, you own the company, you own the majority of the share, in most of the cases 100% of the share, and you are the administrator of the company, so you pay yourself a salary. So this is the classical situation that we have on a daily basis. And based on this structure, which is the best jurisdictions? Here in ESENtaxa we cover Belgium, Albania, Italy, and Portugal. In Italy we are the #1 channel that in English language explains how to optimize your taxation in a long term. So where we start, which jurisdiction should we take into account? Along with these elements that we have just discussed, we have to also take into account the revenue. Because based on revenue also we have some tax advantages, or we can access certain tax scheme or tax regimes. For example, if I'm a freelancer or a self-employed, Belgium is the best jurisdiction if my income is less than 25k per year. So I just start up my activity. So Belgium is the best place to be. You know why? Because 25,000 euro per year as threshold is the access, it gives you the access to the franchise TVA, which is a tax regime in Belgium for business, like e-commerce business, where you actually don't add the VAT on your invoices. So it works very well if you have a business to customer activity, okay? Moreover, in Belgium, you have in 2024 a big deduction of 10,300 euro, more or less. This value is indexed, so every year will grow, to be subtracted to 25,000 K. So you first pay your social security here, which is roughly 3,000 euro, 3,000 something per year, fixed to pay. So you remove 3,000 from this 25 and you get like 23,000, and then you remove 10,300 euro and basically you remains with the 12,700 euro to be taxed. You see? So only 12,000 euro 700 would be the imposable for taxation, and the taxation on this is 25%. But on your global revenue, basically, the effective tax pressure is only 12%, you see? Moreover, since the e-commerce, as we said, has a lot of cost activity, 25, which is your, let's say, your revenue, can be even squeezed because you have a lot of cost to sustain. So you reduce even more this 25 to something smaller, and then you pay the social security, and then you remove this 10,000 euro, okay? So you might also reach a taxation even lower. You can also have an imposable lower than 12,000, okay? So this is just an example of just telling you, look, if you run this business and your income is low because you just start up, Belgium is the best jurisdiction for this specific case. It's even better than the forfeit regime of Italy, you know? Because with this kind of optimization through the cost, the huge cost of the e-commerce activity, you can basically squeeze down almost to zero your imposable income. Instead, if your income it reaches 85,000 per year, so you from 25,000 you reaches to 85,000, is not anymore Belgium the best place to be to run an e-commerce activity, but Italy. Italy, because you can access, if you stay below this threshold, you can access the forfeit regime, okay? So if you expect to have already 85,000 euro and you stay below this threshold, you can also consider, okay, I'm just started up, I can also have 25,000 euros in Belgium, I can also have 30,000, something like this. But if you stay below this threshold, you have a direct access to forfait regime, which grants you 5% flat tax, so you don't accumulate with the other income, and a huge deductibility cost. And this is what I was referring at the beginning of this video. So the forfait regime is a tax regime that considers you, based on your type of activity, in this case, the e-commerce. Since my activity might have a lot of cost, the Italian state give you for grant 60% forfait deductibility cost. Okay? You're not going to be taxed on the 85,000 euro, but only on the 40% of 85,000, because 60% is considered cost, because the Italian state says forfait regime is something that I will give you forfait cost. You don't have to account your real cost, so you spend a lot of money with your accountability. And since you have an e-commerce, you have a lot of costs. So by default, I think you you had like 60% around on average of cost. So only 40% of this threshold will be taxable for social contribution, which is 26% on this one, and 5% afterward. Okay? So Italy is very good when you have this threshold. But of course, Italy also, it's very good with the impatriate regime for this specific case, because if you have more than 60% of cost, because 60% is just an estimation that the Italian state gives to you, but if you have even more cost, because you trade with the very expensive goods, then you might need to open the impatriate regime. So you open, still as a self-employed freelancer, you are still in this category, so you are still in Italy. Then you don't have any limit for the just plus infinitive, so you don't have any threshold for the impatriate regime. You might have a bigger cost of 60%, then you will move in the south of Italy where your revenue is deductible by 90% after having removed your real effective cost, and then you pay taxes only on the remaining 10%. Okay, so let's imagine, just to give you some numbers more precisely, you have a revenue of 200,000 euro. And 100,000 euro, more than 100,000, I would say 150,000 euro are cost, because it's all the elements, all the items that you have to purchase in order to resell them with the profit. So only, let's say only 50,000 is your real profit. And on 50,000, only 5,000 will be taxed thanks to the impatriate regime in Italy. Okay? And this is one of the cases where it makes sense to move to Italy with the impatriate regime more than the forfait regime. So this is just another example. Analyze the e-commerce, we analyze how much cost you really expect to have, and we basically pick up the correct tax regime in a certain jurisdiction that we cover. Now, let's move now on company situation. What if you want to run this business through a company, or if you already have a company that runs this business and you want to set up in a certain jurisdiction in Europe? And this is the case for Portugal with the NHR program. Why? Because the NHR program allows you to have all the foreign income excluded from taxation. So if you're living in Portugal, if you're tax resident in Portugal, you might have your company in another jurisdiction X, that run the business with his own corporate tax, the dividend tax as low as possible, and you run all the e-commerce activity outside the jurisdiction of Portugal. And then you pay yourself through the type of incomes which are tax-free under the NHR, such as dividends, for example. This is the classical one, or a salary as an administrator. But for this specific case, you as administrator, you're supposed to run your business, even though you are tax resident in Portugal, you can do it, but you have to run your business as administrator outside Portugal, in this jurisdiction or in another jurisdiction. It's possible, we explain in our consultancy service how to do this trick, but for other situations, it will be more easier to receive just dividends in a country where you have set up your company, where your dividends are almost zero, okay? And here we don't have any limits in terms of revenue, threshold revenue, anything. NHR has other requirements to access, like the impatriate regime has other type of requirements. They don't have any threshold requirements, okay? Another jurisdiction that could be very helpful, so it's a jurisdiction where you want to incorporate a company. So you want to live in a jurisdiction in which you also incorporate a company for any reasons. So the Portugal you have the tax residents in Portugal and the company in another jurisdiction. But what if you want to stay in a country in which you live, you pay your taxes, and also your company pays the taxes? So in that case, it would be Albania. Albania has the possibility to have a corporate tax at 0% for your company and the dividend only 8%. So you pay only 8% taxes on dividends. So you can run your e-commerce business with your company based in Albania, and you can basically either payroll yourself, so pay yourself a salary through the administrator, just a very small one, and the rest can come through the dividend. Since the corporate tax is 0% up to 121,000 euro around. So this is the local currency is lek. We have to check the exchange rate, but normally this is the threshold. It's more or less 121,000 euro. Above this threshold, you pay 15% taxes. Okay. So Albania also have nice jurisdiction, but maybe it's a little bit more problematic in terms of bureaucracy when you want to trade with Europe. Okay. But if you have clients from outside Europe, that doesn't make any difference. Huh? So you can basically set up the company in this jurisdiction. Keep in mind that Albania doesn't apply the CFC rules. That might be quite important. So if you are a physical person, an individual, or if your company control other company in tax haven countries, you don't risk to be subject by transparency taxed in Albania. So this is very important. So Albania doesn't apply the CFC rules. So if you are somebody that has a business, e-commerce with another company in a tax haven, might need to find a jurisdiction in Europe where the CFC rules are not applied, and Albania is your situation, is your case, and you can run your e-commerce business without any problem. Moreover, if you want to run your business in the heart of Europe, you want to pay taxes in Europe, you don't want to have a company outside Europe, you want to have it in European jurisdiction, you want to live in Europe. For the company and for the e-commerce business, I still suggest you back Belgium. Why? Because Belgium, of course, is not a tax haven. The taxation is not so low as, let's say, in other jurisdictions such as Estonia, where you can have the corporate tax at 0% if you don't withdraw your dividend. But still, we have this kind of situation. So Belgium allows you a particular type of company, which is called a SME, small medium enterprise, which under certain requirements, you have 20% corporate tax for the first 100K of profit. So first 100K of profit, you pay 20% corporate tax, above 25. But again, here we are talking about that 100K of profit means that you have a revenue of 300,000 euro, all the rest are costs. And keep in mind, Belgium is the perfect jurisdiction if you want to deduct not just your activity costs, but also costs which are besides your activity. So your company car, for example, restaurants cost, representation cost, everything, it's 100% or almost 100%. So it's a nice jurisdiction to deduct a lot of costs, okay? So you have 20% in corporate level, but after 3 fiscal years, you can withdraw your dividends at 15%, and after 5 years, down to 10%. And there is also a trick to receive your dividends with this type of taxation since the beginning of your activity. And here in ESENtaxa, we explain you how to exploit the Belgian company to withdraw your dividend at 15% or 10% since the beginning. And this is not just when you run an e-commerce business, but also if you run any kind of business. Of course, you have to stay inside the requirement of this small medium enterprise. Okay, so if you're interested in the Belgian jurisdiction for this kind of things, just let us know. In the description below the video, you will have our email contact, info@esentaxa.com, or you can book a call in which we can discuss exactly if your business makes sense in Belgium. I think I just give you an overview. This is a very quick overview. Take an example. We have several kind of business, several kind of activity. Each activity has to be designed correctly, has to be described correctly, and once we have the description of our activity, we can exactly understand in which jurisdiction it fits as the best possible. Okay, so of course this works when you have a huge level of flexibility, because we might ask you to change your tax residence, and in case you have a family, the most important thing is to bring the family with you, set up yourself in that tax jurisdictions, and then we can basically create this strategy, this tax strategy, also in long term. I think that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this kind of content, if you like ESENtaxa, please subscribe the channel, like button and notification bell to be always updated whenever we release this kind of content. Thank you. See you to the next video.